No.
And from the beginning.
And the beginning. So I don't want to be long, so now I will just leave the floor to Agnieszka that will start with the quiz. So we can start with the quiz tonight and then go on with the presentations. Okay? Thank you. Maybe.
No, it works.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you be present? Good. Okay.
So hello everybody. I actually met, I think, all of you when I was standing there and taking your names. So hello once again. My name is Agnieszka. And today, to warm you up a little in this cold-ish Norwegian night, we prepared a quiz. So it will be, the questions will be themed around the questions that will be answered by our speakers. So, okay. I was going to ask you if you have used Mentimeter, but I can see some of you, yes. So please, you can put the link, www.menti.com, and you have to put the code of our game. If you don't want to use it on Google or on the browser, you can download the app, or maybe some of you have it already. We will wait. I think there are 14 of us. I don't know how many people are online, but people online are also welcome to join. And of course, there will be a small gift, small prize for the winner, even those online.
Me as well?
I will ask my boss. 15. Speakers are able to can join. Yeah, it's 6879578. Okay, I can see everybody is almost ready. I can see the table here. It's almost done. Okay. Okay, so I think we can start. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the first question. How are large cracks in the Earth's crust called? Trench, fault, giant hole. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. And the answer is faults. That's the pronunciation. Yes. Congrats for the winners. And the next question. Okay. The fastest was Sian. So let's see how it goes with another one. So the second question. What percentage of Norway is covered with forest? That's a good one. 58, 55, 82, or 38%? 5, 3. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I would vote it also 82 actually. Wow. Who? Yeah. Let's see. Let's see who answered correctly. Congrats and bravo. Okay. Next. A pathogen can be a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, a parasite. Five, 3, 2, 1. And the correct answer is all of them. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, Sian is the winner still. Okay, question number 4. Yeah. What could be a result of a movement across faults? So the cracks in the earth crust, if somebody doesn't remember. 5, 4. Time's up. Yeah, earthquakes. Almost everybody got it. Oh, the second place has changed, and everybody's running up. Sian. Okay, next question. Most of the organic matter in the lakes is produced by algae. False or true? Five, 2, 1. And that is true. Ah, no, it's false. Oh, well. Anywho. So let's see who responded correctly. Oh. Oh, we have a competition. Okay, what is the percentage of emerging infection diseases reported as jumping from an animal to a human? Oh, 35, 50, or 75%? 5, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. Okay. That was a plot twist. Okay. Everything can change. Where do most earthquakes occur on Earth? North Pole, Pacific Ocean, or tectonic plates? 5. Whoa, that was fast. Yes, I would answer the same. Oh. Okay. Okay. One parameter does not cause an increase of organic matter in the lakes. What is it? Amount of rain, proportion of vegetation, proportion of bugs. 5, 3, 2. Yeah, perfect. Simba forever. I love it. Okay, I think we have a new first place. Yeah, Sian. Okay. Nothing is set as yet. What could be a parasite? An insect, protozoa, worm, your neighbor. 5, 2, 1. Okay. I'm actually. Yeah. I will not comment on that. I agree with everybody. And oh, okay. Okay, Hollywood is better than Norway at making realistic movies about natural disasters. Yes or no? 10. Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh, we have a change in the 3 places. Yeah. Okay, 2 more questions. Get ready, guys. Heterotrophic bacteria eat the organic matter and produce CO2. True or false? CO2 as carbon dioxide. 5. And that's true. And let's see what is the leaderboard. Okay, and the last one. Let's see how it goes. Which infection disease is related to parasite that affects the behavior of their host? Toxoplasmosis. And oh my God, zootropic manage. Oh no, okay, you can read. I think I will not butcher it. Okay, so the last one. And the official winner is. Yeah, it's Panna. Congrats. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you have to show our online. But I guess we can give the reward now, or you can come after in the break. There will be a reward for you. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for participating. I hope it was fun. Yeah. And yeah, I'm giving the microphone to my boss.
Are we okay for the camera? Hi everybody. So yeah, you know I'm Thibaut, and I've been. Yeah, it works. Lavinia has asked me to present because I'm the only French in the team. So. So we're gonna jump straight to our presentation. And the first one is Jean-Baptiste. Actually, the fun facts, like we came together in Tromsø as an Erasmus student a long time ago. Yeah, I think it's 11 years ago. So yeah, he was a PhD. He was an Erasmus student at the University of Tromsø at the geologue. He has done as well his master and his PhD in geology, at the University of Tromsø, and now he's working as a postdoc at the University of Oslo. What do you have? Yeah, as the polar researcher. It's not my notes. I'm adapting. So yeah, so basically, yeah, he's mainly performed field research in the Arctic as like Svalbard, and is a fan of Norwegian cinema, especially movies about natural disaster. and beers. Okay, so. And soon, yeah, after you go to Canada, if I'm right, and you will be back with us. So please, Jean-Baptiste. No.
Well, thanks a lot for the introduction. I don't think I'll be needing that one. After a beer, I'm pretty loud already, so I think, skål. Well, it seems like it's quite paradoxical because, thank you, the thing that I have to lecture you the most tonight is about actually the difference between Hollywood and Norwegian cinema. It's pretty tragic. You seem to all know pretty much about geology already, so really well done, guys. I'm impressed. I'd like to start off with this picture taken from Fairy Tale, because frankly, geology is a little bit of a fairy tale from time to time, and it is because it still involves a significant amount of subjectivity. Now, I am a polar geologist, which means I get to go to Svalbard, lucky ass, to do field work regularly. And I think this picture sums up pretty much my situation when a few years back, as a fresh PhD student, I stepped for the first time on Svalbard land without knowing that deep under my feet lay sleeping giants. But what type of giants are we talking about here? To understand that, we're going to have a look at a very basic concept in geology, that of plate tectonics. So basically, it's a concept that says that the outermost layer of the Earth consists of vast, jagged pieces that are going towards each other, forming large mountain chains like the Himalayas or the Andes, or away from each other, opening oceans. And though very slow at human scale, anywhere between 1 to 20 centimeters per year, these movements are actually large enough to create large cracks in the Earth crust. And the most famous of these cracks is, of course, the San Andreas Fault in California. Now, it looks like this giant line in the landscape, pretty nice on an aerial photograph. But why is this important in the end? Well, it is because frictions, or these movements along faults, actually trigger earthquakes. And to show you how devastating some of these earthquakes can be, here are two pictures. One of San Francisco after the 1906 earthquake, the last big earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault, and the other of London in 1944 after the bombing by the Germans. And if you're not used to these two towns at those times, it's pretty tough to tell which one is which, right? It's actually to say that, is this working? No? Yes. Fantastic. So pretty tough to say which one is which. It's actually quite large forces in play now. But although they have devastating consequences at the Earth's surface, these earthquakes do not occur at surface. They occur deep down below our feet, at several kilometers or tens of kilometers, sometimes hundreds of kilometers. So how do we study these? Would you tell me? I mean, actually, it's not that complicated. We just do like the doctor would do if they were to study a crack in your arm, your broken arm. They'd take an X-ray, right? It's there. Still not? Would that be better? Yes, X-ray. Yeah, right. Got it. No? Right. So we do the same thing in geology, except that our X-rays are way cooler with all those colors and lots of lines. If we have to take a look at one out there, maybe in my favorite area in Norway, of course, Svalbard. Yeah, we're going to have a look at the X-ray there. Yes, that looks something like this. Yeah, not all of them are like that, but pretty cool with lots of lines which symbolize different layers of rocks that have different physical properties. And if we have a look at the top, I mean, it's pretty simple to trace one line from one side to the other. Pretty undeformed and easy to trace. Like, it's fine. But the deeper we go, is it possible to? Yes, the deeper we go, the more wiggly they become, and the less continuous they become, and it's all chaos down there and whatnot, until we hit that gigantic piece here, triangular shape thing, that it actually consists of several packages of quite high amplitude, quite nicely defined pieces of rocks, and actually separated by large cracks that have transported huge packages of rocks, several hundred meters thick, or sometimes kilometers thick packages of rock on top of each other. So basically, these kind of things happen like this. We submit these rock packages initially flat and undeformed to stress. We try to shorten these packages, and eventually we buckle rocks, we fold them until it is no longer possible to accommodate deformation, and we have to rupture rock, and a fault forms like here. And this fault can accommodate so much deformation until another one is going to form and transport, stack another package of rock on top of the previous one. Right, so that's what we're having a look at now in this X-ray. Now, X-rays of the Earth are not the only way we can trace faults. Actually, we can have a look at also satellite data. For example, here, gravimetric data. We see here we have the X-ray we had a look at, and here the large fault that is actually bounding packages of rocks that are quite denser, and here in the south, packages of rocks that are slightly less dense. Now, this fault already is about 2,500 kilometers, which places it already in the top 10 of the longest faults on Earth. Not bad for a newcomer. Now, I think some of you may have noticed that this bright anomaly that can be traced all the way to Russia is not the only one there, right? This is Svalbard, northern Norway, Russia. There's some others right here going all the way from Russia to Norway, and actually each and every one of them is bounded by an equally long fault. Yes, great. So we've just, in the scope of 1 minute, 10-minute presentation, we've just redone the top 10 of all longest faults on Earth. Pretty good. So why is this important? Do you remember that I told you that faults generate earthquakes? There is a pretty good correlation between earthquake and plate boundaries. So we see here, if you don't remember the first map we saw earlier today, plate tectonics, we see that the plate boundaries correlate with the largest amalgamation of earthquakes. So here, convergent plate boundaries with the largest earthquake on Earth, where mountain chains are built, like the Andes or the Himalayas, and also minor earthquakes where plates are diverging, like the mid-ocean region in the oceans, in the Atlantic or Indian Ocean. Now, if we have a look at Norway and Svalbard, they're located into a really quiet corner of the Eurasian plate, right? In this area, there are only 3 earthquakes in the past 120 years that have occurred away from plate boundaries. Those 2 here, that are the results of nuclear tries by our friends Russians, and that one there in Storfjord, actually right next to the X-ray we had a look at earlier. And if we go right back to that X-ray there, yes, thank you, we see that this area there, we see that the sediments that are being deposited right now are actually folded just above this package of faults. And that can only mean one thing. These faults are still moving nowadays. There's actually been an earthquake somewhere here at 15 to 16 kilometers depth, and as a ripple effect, it made all the others move until they deformed and folded the seafloor. Now, this is not the only earthquake that occurred in Storfjorden, actually, around Svalbard. There's actually been quite a lot of them between 2008 and 2012. This is the main shock here in 2008, and all the others, the small red circle there, are aftershocks directly related to the main shock, basically minor adjustment, part of this ripple effect I was describing before. But to understand why there are so many earthquakes in this fjord here next to Svalbard, we have to step back and have a look at a longer X-ray. This is the X-ray we had a look at just before. We take a longer one here across those 3 faults here. And we're going to see that actually these faults are not just lines, they are actually quite massive. So this is the part we had a look at before. To make it a little bit easier for you, I'm going to show the interpretation of this this X-ray with all the faults, the cracks in in black. And we see that these structures or these aggregates of faults are sometimes up to 50, 60 kilometers wide and up to 20 kilometers thick. So that's massive structures. And all these explosion symbols here symbolize all the earthquakes that have occurred in the fjord that are above magnitude 4. And they all correlate with major cracks. Some of them even being so dramatic as to offset the seafloor here. You see that the stress applied to these faults has been so high that actually the fault propagated upwards and truncated the seafloor. Right. So now we know there's lots of earthquakes. We know why. There are lots of faults in this fjord. So where do they come from? Are they isolated events like those nuclear tries in Russia? Is the Norwegian government not telling us everything? Or are they part of large geological cycles that may signify the beginning of the awakening of these gigantic faults? To answer the question, we have to step back, plotting the faults again, and see the relationship of these faults with the closest active plate boundary, which is actually the mid-ocean ridge in the North Atlantic Ocean and the Fram Strait, where magma is extruded from deep down in the Earth mantle up to the surface and pushing the two tectonic plates away from each other. Now, if we have a look at the 2016 earthquake, the one that moved in 2016, this fault here, we see that the block located on this side of the fault is located quite close to the plate boundary, while the block located on the other side of the fault is located relatively farther away from the plate boundary, right? So although both blocks are going to be pushed towards the east, this block here is going to move much faster than this one here, which is going to generate differential displacement and is going to generate friction along the fault and therefore trigger earthquakes. The earthquakes we see in this area of Svalbard. Now, where does that take us? What is awaiting those poor folks of Svalbard, Troms, and Finnmark in northern Norway? Is it something like this? Is this where we are going in Norway? Is Troms and Finnmark going to be submerged by tsunamis? To put it mildly, if you ever wanted to know anything about natural disaster, you would not watch that movie, right? Hollywood, bad. It's bad, very bad. Is this any better, Shelvet? It's actually pretty good. Actually, this movie shows all the realistic precursory signs to an earthquake and a realistic scenario to a major earthquake in the Oslo area. So, yeah, I really strongly encourage you to watch the movie. But, well, yeah, that movie is for an onshore area, like on land, right? While the earthquakes in Svalbard, they occur under the sea, right? So could we have something in between those two movies? They're actually quite good, geologically speaking. Viva le cinema Norvega. Pretty good. But the better answer is we don't know. The truth is, despite recent advances in earthquake monitoring, we're still pretty helpless in predicting the location and magnitude of upcoming earthquakes. And if you want to know why, please check out my TED video on earthquakes. All right. Thank you. Geology is a science of cycles. Things that might open one day will necessarily close sooner or later. Right now, an ocean is opening between Norway and Greenland, the North Atlantic Ocean. But 400 million years ago, Norway and Greenland actually collided, forming a mountain chain that was as large as the Himalayas. So there is a more than good chance that sooner or later, the North Atlantic Ocean will close and Norway and Greenland will collide again. So here is my advice, folks. Prepare to fight the Danes again! Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate.
Yes, thanks, JB.
I'm sorry.
I understand. That's why you're moving to Canada, right?
Yeah, right.
But which part? Which part of Canada?
I'm afraid to say that it's the French part.
I've been there.
All right, yeah.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad. No,
We
I'm
have
sure.
one
Sure.
question. I will just hold the mic. We can ask the question to the internet and no, I will.
Oh, sorry.
Better focus.
Can you feel the earthquakes in Svalbard?
Yes, some of them can be felt. Yeah, if their magnitudes more than 4 or 5, then you can feel them. Yeah.
When was the last one?
When was the last?
The
one?
last one, wow, I think 2019, just south of Svalbard, though. The one that I showed was from 2008 to 2012, and one of the fault that we focused on was 2016. These could be felt. Problem is that there are not that many people to feel them there. That's the problem.
Any other question?
Yeah.
From the internet, do we have any question, Praveen?
No.
No.
That was pretty clear. Well, the audience seemed to know quite a lot about geology, so cheers for all of you guys. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, JB. We have a 10-minute break. 5 minutes break if you want to have a refill, some food, whatever. We'll be back. Thanks. Okay, so our next speaker is Camille Marie-Crapard. So she's a PhD at the US of. Unfortunately, she cannot be with us, so she's online. Well, down there. Well, you cannot see it, Camille, but yeah, we can see you. So she's a PhD student at the University of Oslo. She's belonging to the Center of Geochemistry in the Anthropocene. And before that, she has done a master in environment science on policies in Paris. And she moved to Oslo to work as a science coordinator at the Institut Français. Successively, she started a PhD in freshwater chemistry with a focus on the concentration and reactivity of organic matter in lakes and the consequences of the evolution in the context of global warming. Sounds cool. Okay. Yeah, so that's me.
Hello,
Hi, Camille.
everybody can hear me fine? Yeah.
Can you hear them? Oh, actually, you can see them. You know what?
Not that I can see it. Oh yeah, perfect. Amazing. Woohoo. I'm happy to see people. I'm so sorry I can't be here. My roommate is sick. So yeah, I have to be at home. But yeah, so I'm going to talk, as Thibaut said, about organic matter in lakes. So yeah, this is my screen, perfect. So yeah, I study freshwater chemistry, and I will talk about something that you all probably already observed, because I'm working around things that happen around here. So if you've been in Norway long enough, like this summer, and you've been to a lake and you tried to swim in that lake, you probably saw that the water was really, really brown. That's not new, but it's a pretty recent phenomena, actually. So I'm working on this thing, the brownification on Norwegian lakes. So we'll go through, like, where does this come from and what does it do to the lakes? So first of all, I'm going to define a bit what I'm talking about. So I'm working on freshwater, but only in the boreal region. So the boreal region is this region is in gray. That's over Alaska, United States, Russia, and Fennoscandia, where we are now. And it's defined by a lot of forest and a lot of very long winters. It's a very big ecosystem. It's not as studied as the Arctic, but it's still pretty interesting. So we're going to be a bit in one aspect of the boreal ecosystem, which are the lakes. And so for comparison, and for you to see a bit like what this country look like, I mean, you know Norway. You all thought there was a lot of forest in Norway, but actually it's not that much. It's just a bit over a third. But there is in all countries in Fennoscandia, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, there is quite a lot of forests, quite a lot of water, and quite a lot of wetlands. So there is less forest in Norway because there is more mountain. But otherwise, it's Norway is a bit different from the two others because of the mountain part. But still, it has a lot of these forests and a lot of lakes, even if it's only 5% in Norway. It's still more than France. I put France here to compare. I did this presentation once at the Institut Français, so I put France to compare, and you can see that France and Norway are actually pretty similar for like the forest and the open terrain. But in Norway, the open terrain, it's just bushes and mountain stuff, and in France is more like grasslands for animals. So this characteristic will have an impact on the lakes, even if it's not only in the water, like the forest and bogs and all the wetlands, they have an impact on the lake too, and we'll come to that later. So water is particularly important to study in the north, in Norway, because we depend on it so much, a lot, for drinking water first, since 90%, you can't really see it, but since 90% of it come from lake, and also from electricity. So studying lakes and what's in the water can have a lot of impacts on our daily life and also on ecosystems. So it's quite a big topic here. So I'm talking about the burning. Burning is the name we give to this phenomena of having more organic matter in lakes. So I'm talking of not any kind of organic matter. Organic matter, it's what we are made of, like what animals and us and plants are made of. But I'm studying only a little part of it, and that's the part what we call dissolved. It looks like this kind of molecules, very complex molecules of carbon with oxygen, hydrogen, a lot of bonds, rings, and all that. And when it's sufficiently small, we call it dissolved. So I will use several names for organic matter during this presentation. One of them is DOM. I can also say DOC for dissolved organic carbon, sometimes TOC for total organic carbon, but it all refers to this organic matter in lakes. And you can see here my colleague Nico from Spain, and he's taking samples in a river, and you can see that the water is super brown. And actually, it's been burning over the last 4 or 5 decades, since the 60s. That's a plot for a river in Sweden, but we observe the same thing here. So what happened between the 60s and now? Something happened that's actually pretty good. It's that the acid rain stops. I don't know if you know a lot about acid rains. It's not very complicated. We used to use a lot of fossil fuels for industry in Northern Europe, and these fossil fuels, especially coal, would contain a lot of sulfur and nitrogen. And when we burn them, this sulfur and nitrogen go into the atmosphere, they oxidize, and then they fall again on land and on water with the rain. So this caused a lot of lakes in Fennoscandia to be very acidic. So if some communes even had to put calcite in the lakes to make them more basic, otherwise it will kill all the fishes. And there has been since this time a lot of study on fresh water in all of Fennoscandia. So this picture comes from a study that was made in 1995. And I'm showing you the pH of the lake, so the level of acidity. And you can see that there are, in the south of Norway, quite a lot of lakes that are red. And that shows a very low pH, so very acidic lakes. So this has been diminishing a lot since the 60s. And actually, there is a link between this acidification and the color of the water, because acidic soils or water contain a lot more aluminium that is in the bedrock. And when an acidic rain comes to this bedrock, it dissolves the aluminium, and the aluminium makes all the molecules of organic matter bind together, like get glued to each other. So they became so heavy that they fall, or they don't arrive to the lake because they're so heavy they can't be transported by the rain from the catchment, from the forest to the rivers. So with less acid rains, there has been less aluminium in the water, so more organic matter. But these acid rains have stopped now. It's much more controlled, so it's not happening anymore. But there is still an increase of organic matter, an increase of the brownification of the water. And to understand where does this brownification come from, we need to understand from where the organic matter come from, actually. So there are 2 sources of organic matter in the lakes. The first and main one is the organic matter that comes from the catchment. The catchment, it's all the area that is around the lake. So it's around Sangsvan, it would be all the forest around until the next stops. So On the catchment, in the area of the lake, there is either forest, either bogs, either bushes, and when these things, when the plants grow, they make new leaves, they make new branches, and once all of this die, they are already decomposed by microorganisms in the soil, and that creates a lot of dissolved organic matter. And when it rains, this organic matter is flushed from the soil to the rivers and then to the lake. And that's in Fennoscandia, most of the organic matter comes from the catchment. It's like around 90%, so it's pretty huge. It depends on the lakes, of course. Like some of them have much more of the other source of organic matter, which is the organic matter that is made by algae in the lake. So algae are plants that make photosynthesis, so they can use the light of the sun and the carbon dioxide from the air to make their own organic matter. So that's the second source of DOM. But there is a bit less of it. So to understand why the organic matter is still increasing, even if there is no more acid rain, we can investigate the impact of different parameters. So we can look at, for example, the proportion of bogs. We can look at the proportion of forest. Here I use an indicator that is called NDVI. It's a proxy to see how green a point on a map can be. We can use as well like the amount of precipitations per year, or we can look at the nitrogen depositions. Nitrogen is a fertilizer. So if there is more nitrogen, we can maybe think that there will be more plants or more algae production. So I'm using a lot of data from 95, which is a picture I showed you before, and this map also use this data to try and see which of these parameters is the one that impacts the most the organic matter in lakes. And what we see is that the forest parameter is the one that has the most impact. So here I see that this map shows like how much the TOC concentration would increase or decrease for a certain change in each of the parameters. So if we add 10% of forest on a catchment, we would have a 30% increase of organic matter in lakes. And we see that runoff is the part of the precipitation that actually flows through the catchment. This would decrease the concentration of organic matter, mainly because it would mean that there is more water in the lake. So even if there is a lot of organic carbon that can be taken from the soil to the lake, there will be so much more water that the concentration will still be lower. But yeah, things to remember from here are that forests actually play a big role in this bonification, and bogs too. Bogs are these, places where you go hiking and your shoes are so soaked with water after. It's there everywhere in forests in Norway. So they are full of carbon, and if some water flows from the bogs to the lakes or the river, then of course it increases the concentration of carbon in the lakes. But the effects can be, these are the percent of change that we need to obtain, what I showed you. But the last thing I wanted to say is that the effect of this parameter is a bit different depending on where you are in Fennoscandia. So I'm also looking at how big this effect would be if you're in Norway or in southern Sweden when there is more agriculture, or in the north. So all this is a bit not completely ready yet, so I won't detail too much. But so yeah, remember only the forest impacts on the bonification. And it's actually important to understand what's going on in the catchment and in the lake, because the organic matter in the lakes, it doesn't just stay there, it's processed by other microorganisms and it's their food. So just like us, bacteria, and it's particularly heterotrophic bacteria, they use the organic matter for two things. The first one is called anabolism, and it's the fact that the bacteria, they take small molecules of organic matter and they bind them together to make their own body, their cells. And the second thing that they use it for is the respiration process, which is a process that takes organic matter and oxygen to make energy, which is a thing that you use to build yourself, and also it creates organic carbon dioxide. So if there is a lot of organic matter in lakes, there will be more food for the heterotrophic bacteria. So there will be more respiration. So to understand better what's going on if there is more forest or more bogs on the catchments, we can see it that way. So I showed you before, plants grow, they make leaves, they make branches, they die, they're decomposed. So here we just had a lot more things decomposing in the catchment. With rain and all that, a lot of this organic matter is going to go into the lakes. It's going to make the water very brown. So not all the algae will have enough light to make a photosynthesis, which consumes carbon dioxide to make organic matter. But this organic matter in the lake is going to be consumed by heterotrophic bacteria, the one that do not make photosynthesis, and this will emit a lot of carbon dioxide. So if there is more forest in the catchment, there will also be more carbon dioxide emissions from lakes. And currently, this is something that's not very well looked into in climate models. There is a lot of work on methane and on carbon uptake by forest, but there is not very good estimation of how much of organic matter is emitted from freshwaters. So we would need to add this arrow in further models to understand well, like how the carbon cycle works. So from all these things I've shown until now, all from the concentration of organic matter to the study of the heterotrophic bacteria, we should be able to close that gap. So to summarize what I said until now, if the temperature increase or if there is more forests on the catchment, then there will be more organic matter in lakes coming from the catchment. It will be hard to degrade, harder than if it's created already in the lake, and there will be more respiration, so more CO2 production. And more CO2 production means participation to climate change. So of course, that's a simplistic picture. Forests do take a lot of carbon, so we will need to make a balance between the uptake of carbon and the emission of carbon, but that's something that needs to be studied a bit further. That's all for me. I hope I didn't go too fast. And if you have questions, I'm very happy to take them and answer. Yeah. Okay. Yay, I can see you again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for the presentation. I have one of my own that I can wait and go to the public, see if they have some question. No. My question is more related to say that we need to have a balance between the amount of forest. But who, I mean, does the human... Sorry. So I had a question of my own as well. So you mentioned the last slide that actually we need to have a balance in the amount of forest to...
Yeah.
So who is taking care of that? Is it nature or the human need to as well get involved to like correct his own mistake? Well, not the mistake, but to help to balance such amount of forest.
So that's a hard question because it's hard to say that forest is a bad thing. But actually there is a plan in Norway right now to plant more forest because the amount of forest in Norway has increased a lot since centuries. It used to be much more exploited for timber, and although there was more agriculture, like more animals pasturing around, so we've seen an increase of, I think, like between, I don't remember exactly, but there is a lot more forest than there used to be in Norway, and the plan is to plant even more for climate. So it's interesting to look at the effect of this planting of new forests instead of leaving it as it here, to see whether it's a good idea or not to have this measure as a climate change mitigation measure, because I think that's one of the plans of Norway to reach their emission goals. is to have more forest, and it might not be the best idea here. It's very good to make reforestation in places in the tropics where it's been cut to do more agriculture, but here there is naturally more forest happening. So it might be more interesting, for example, to have wetlands, but I'm not sure as well, like, because wetlands also have an impact on lake. But yeah, lakes are a big part, not the biggest part. Forests do take a lot of carbon, so yeah, we have to look into this balance. But since we don't exactly know how much lake emits, we can't make the balance yet.
Okay, thanks. Any follow-up question, guys? No, does not seem so. There is no question from the audience,
It's okay.
neither from the internet. Thanks again for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, we can have a quick break. Just that we just need to switch again the computer to adapt to the, and then we will be back. Thanks. Okay, we're back now for final speaker. So Elliot Lambert. So I will just read. No, it's not working. Yeah, sorry again for the technical issue. So we are now in time to our final speaker, Elliot Lambert. So I will just read Lavinia's notes, so there is no mistake.
There is no.
It's no, okay, no, so self-made. So Elliot carried his master's thesis on his master's degree in environmental biology at the University of Oslo to eventually prolong his stay and expand professionally. And after working in education and being involved in a lot of NGOs and startups, he has been working as the head engineer in veterinary parasitology for the last 5 years. 5 years at NMBU. Yeah. And simultaneously, Elliot has been involved in personal projects related to climate activism and well-being. The stage is yours. And I need to clean that.
Yes.
Oublie pas de mettre en route ton mic.
Okay, so I think it's the best topic during lunchtime or dinner time, parasitology. I still don't know how the presentation will be because I really wanted to try to combine something that is gross with something that can be entertaining. Yeah, so first, two announcements. I was careful, selected proper pictures, because I believe your imagination can see even more things from what I will say. And the second one is like I'm not a researcher and I don't have a PhD, so this presentation is more like from what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm still not convinced about doing a PhD. So I'm working at NMBU, so it's in English, it's the Norwegian University of Life Science that is in Ås. When the train is properly working, it's about 45 minutes from here. And I'm actually working in a nice new building that was opened last May that is combining the Norwegian Veterinary School with the Norwegian Veterinary Institute. That is supposed to be the most sustainable health building in Europe. I don't know if it's true. So yeah, as an engineer, I'm doing various things, but from this presentation, I will focus more about what I learned from my work in diagnostics. Yeah. And in diagnostic, it's basically receiving samples from animals and trying to analyze and understand why the animals are sick. The majority of the samples are usually linked to animals suffering from intestinal problems. So it lets you imagine what kind of job I'm doing every day. Yeah, so actually why we should care about parasites. So first, a bit more holistic, and well, we are not alone on this planet. It has been estimated that we are one species among 8.7 million other species, eukaryotes, and with all those complex interaction and ecosystem. So if you're not convinced by this, yeah, sorry. And actually, 86% of the species on Earth hasn't been discovered yet, and 91% of the species in the ocean hasn't been discovered yet. Yeah. So if you haven't been convinced by the first argument, let's talk about health, and especially about the concept about zoonotic disease. So basically, a zoonotic disease is a disease that is transmitted between animals other than humans, and by some mechanism, it's jumped into the humans. So for example, COVID-19 is a good example. So how it happened, it's usually us, the responsible. It's either direct, for example, by destroying our natural habitats, or, for example, wildlife trades that increase our interaction with the wild animals. So by mutation, at some point, the pathogen just jump. And it can also just be linked indirectly by the climate change and all the consequences related with the destruction of habitats. Yeah, and among, I think it was the last 30 years, 75% of the new discovered infectious diseases were actually zoonotic, which means that it's basically by destroying the environment and increasing our interaction with wild animals that we actually create new infectious disease for humans. And then the last argument that I usually like, because I'm not very good with small talk, so usually, when you have to introduce yourself, it's very convenient to say what I do. And most of the time, people stop talking. And then some people ask questions, so then it's like weird. So now I want you to think, when you hear parasite, what do you think about? So you might think about something like this, or something like this. You see, I was careful with picture, So actually, parasites are different from the other type of pathogens. So first, as you can see, I found this picture when I wrote pathogens, and there is no parasite, because my mouth is very dry. Wow. So, pathogens are linked to bacteria, virus, and fungi, but also parasites. But why, thank you, sorry. But why actually they are different from the other type of pathogens? So first, they are, unless bacteria, virus, or fungi, they are not one type of organism, but there are 3 different types. So I guess usually when you hear about parasite, you think about worms, maybe sometime about insects. But actually, there are some protozoa or unicellular that are also parasites. Maybe if you're checking about water issues, you maybe heard about Cryptosporidium and Giardia. So yeah, as I said, a parasite is not linked with a specific. Oh, thank you. So it's not linked with a specific classification. It's not linked with the size, because you can go to micromet to centimeters. But actually, it's linked with their lifestyle. That is parasitism. So in a way, we could consider virus as parasite, but since they are not organism, they're actually out. And I think I have already enough work with all the other type of parasites. So actually, I think I'm going much faster than I thought. Okay. If I go very fast, just tell me. So now, some cool parasites. So the first one, I took one example. So actually, I took 3 examples, and they're all from parasites that I've been working in my jobs. So the first one is the insect called Pseudoropes ovis. That is actually very bad for sheep, because it creates some very strong lesion. And because of this, it's actually considered A-class, A-list disease. So it means that the rate of infection is so high that it can create extremely disastrous economical and social problem. So in general, every country has the surveillance program, and they need to report any positive case. Which is good for us is like it's not zoonotic, so it doesn't jump into humans, but it's present in different parts of the world. And actually, in Norway, it has been eradicated for more than 100 years, but it was found in 2015 when actually we started to have a national surveillance program. So I guess it was maybe here before. But the thing is, like, we haven't found it in sheep. Yeah. We found it actually in alpaca llama, because in the last 15 years, Norway has enjoyed actually imported those animals without necessarily having proper control. So far, at least, there is no proof that the parasites in those animals can jump into the sheep, but there is still like a yearly surveillance program. And yeah, I think I've said everything about this one. So this one, actually, I never say his full name. I always say the small liver fluke and I was practicing for 1 hour, but I was like, I'm not going to manage, but at least I put the proper name. So we went from insect to worm, and this is actually called flatworm. I guess you can understand why. And its host is usually sheep and cows, but as you can see, it can be in other species, including humans, but it's very rare. It's usually asymptomatic, which means that you don't have any symptom. But if it's in case of severe effect, it's really treated with liver lesions. It's present in 30 countries in all the continents, and it's mostly in Norway in the western part. But we will see why. So here it's a life cycle of these parasites. And what is really interesting, it actually needs like 3 different hosts in order to complete this life cycle. It starts with the cow that will release the egg through the feces. Actually, I have the next picture is maybe better. Yeah. The cow will release the feces and the snail will eat it. By this process, the eggs will actually go under different transformation inside the snail. That will release the transformed eggs through the saliva that will be eaten by the ants. But then we can wonder how an ant can be eaten by a cow, because it's not necessarily his diet. So what is cool with this parasite is basically actually affecting the behavior of the ant, and it will actually push him to go to the top of grass and just waiting to be eaten by a cow. And then it will help to complete the life cycle. So the next one, that is my favorite, and usually when you talk about this parasite to parasitology, they really love it, because actually we know that we don't know anything about this parasite, but we are thinking that it's probably the parasite that is responsible of the most of economical problem if you consider all the parasites together. So first, you can find it in almost any all warm blood animals, which includes humans. In general, it's asymptomatic, but it's for humans, it's usually dangerous during pregnancy. So that's why we advise pregnant women to really cook their food and to do some control. So we can see that before explaining the life cycle, that actually it's present in different parts of the world, but different prevalence, because for example, in Norway, it's pretty low, between 10 to 20%. And if you go up north, it's less than 10%. But for example, in France, it's between 40 to 60%. So it means that in France, at least 1 person out of 2 has actually the parasite in his body. So then the life cycle. So as you can see, it's not difficult. It can go almost in everything. But the main cycle is involving cats or feline, but mostly cats, and rats or birds. So it's a protozoa, so it's not like a worm or an insect. And it has, just to summarize, it has 2 different stages. So one that is a cyst, so it's basically a larva with a capsule that is in the tissue. And oocyst, that is, just summarizing, is similar to an egg. So the natural life cycle of this parasite is basically released through the cat feces, go in the environment. At some point, the rat eats grass or something and ingest the oocyst that will actually transform itself into a cyst into the tissue. And then it will be eaten by the cats, and the cyst will be actually absorbed and transformed in order to complete the reproduction. But then, as you can see, there is some accidental host. So, for example, pigs or sheep or even human can actually ingest it by accident. But in this case, it will just stay in the organism, and it's not going to reproduce. The problem also with a pregnant woman is actually a pregnant woman can transmit the parasite to the fetus. And it's where, for human, it's usually where we have to be careful, because for the fetus, it can have very harmful effect, because it can affect the cognitive development and also the vision. But as we saw with the previous parasite, we can wonder how, what the parasite is actually doing. So actually, this parasite is doing a similar effect to the previous one, because it actually affects the mice behavior. And just to summarize, it kind of messed up the part of the brain that is rated with fear and the part of the brain that is rated with pleasure. So technically, a mice, if it's mentally healthy, if it smells cat urine, it will just run away. But because of the parasite, it will just be attracted and being eaten by the cat. But then we can wonder what happened with humans. So actually, there are a lot of studies about what kind of effect this parasite is doing to humans, in addition to during the pregnancy. It has been shown that it could, for example, be linked to depression. It could be linked, for example, with people that are suicidal or that are really addicted to adrenaline, seeking for danger. But since it's very difficult to, create a study that you can actually separate the effect of this parasite with a lot of different things, there are a lot of researchers that are working on it, and it's still a lot of discovery. But this one is my favorite just because of this. So I try to think how I can finish a presentation about parasite quite optimistic, but I think I will just give some advice that you probably already know, but yeah, I haven't found something better. So first, hygiene, wash your hand. I guess with COVID, people discovered that it's good to wash your hand. Wash your vegetables, wash your fruits. If you like bloody meat or raw meat, well, think about it. Or if you really like it, try to check where the source where this meat is coming from. This is a kind of a thing that we had in France, about not using antibiotics for any reasons, but it's actually a huge problem, especially for people raising cows. They basically give them medicine against parasite before checking if they have parasites. So in Norway, it's becoming a huge problem about resistance. And it's we actually end up having no treatment about some worms. And the last one is of course, stay curious, because I don't know, I think for me, it's very interesting to see how a parasite can create those kind of connection and coevolution, but no hysteria. So for example, don't check some websites, reach maybe the Food Safety or Health Institute if you have some questions. I got a case last year of a woman that went to Africa, and I'm not supposed to work with human feces, but basically the Food Institute, the Health Institute didn't want to work with that. So for 2 weeks, every day I had to check her feces. I could almost get what she ate. And just because she went to Africa and she had she was annoyed intestinally. So yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, maybe you have a question?
Yes, we have a question.
You were talking about scabies, but and is rabies also toxoplasmosis bacteria?
Rabies, it's
it?
virus.
It's a virus.
Yeah.
But it also takes control of the brain or the organs. No,
You mean scabies or rabies?
rabies.
I mean, it's not my field, so
Okay.
I don't know.
And just one more question for you, Duo. And
Okay.
I'm just asking for a friend. Why don't you do the quiz in the end?
Yeah.
We can debate on first. Let's focus on
I can answer. I'm a vet. Rabies. Rabies is a viral disease that affects. Rabies is a viral disease and it affects behavior. But I didn't hear the question.
Could you repeat the question?
No, I think Eric was talking about toxoplasmosis bacteria that were controlling
Yeah.
the brain, right?
Cortisol, that's a cortisol disease.
Yeah.
So,
And rabies is not.
no, rabies is a viral disease.
It's linked with the virus, but here it's unicellular.
Yeah, how does it affect the brain?
Or the exact mechanism of how it affects the brain is
We have online debate. Yeah, please.
About the toxo, is the toxo for the humans can be once you got it, it stays in your organism.
Yeah.
for life, isn't it? Like a pregnant woman, that's the thing. If you get it before getting pregnant, then you're immune to it.
So basically, it's like that's why you have like the cyst phase that is a kind of like shell that is fixed in the tissue and it stay the whole life. But usually, I mean, I think it depends on countries. But I think pregnant women, they have to do some tests to check if they are negative. But
once they're positive, they don't have to pay more attention on the fruit. As a daddy, I know. You don't have to pay as much attention on the vegetables, the milk, the cheeses, because if they had the contact with either the fruits, vegetables, or cats that had the toxo, they're considered as immune and don't have to be. But at the same time, you said that it can influence the brain. I was wondering if it was assimilated by the body, or like in the case of the depression you're talking about, or the effects. So once you get it, basically there's no treatment, and so you once you've been in contact, you've got it, and it's for life.
yeah, but it's since the human is. I mean, I'm not like because it's human-like. So, but from what I know, it's since the human is the accidental host. It's also depending of the amount of this parasite you get in your body that is also linked with how much reaction you will have.
But does that mean that it's processed and evacuated somehow?
No, because that's the thing. They are fixing in the muscles and they are in cyst, which means it's a kind of shell. So they are like, because in the natural environment, they should have, if it was like mice or other things, they should have been eaten by the cat. So the human, it's more like accidental host. So it just stay in the muscles and that's it. Unless the human is maybe walking in the countryside and meet a lion, maybe you can complete the life cycle, but otherwise it's that we call accidental host, that the cyst just get fixed and cannot develop.
So until you've got someone, a researcher that says that it has an impact on the brain, so somehow...
There is that already, but the problem is like, I think from what I researched when I made this presentation, I think it's really hard to, there are so many factors. So it's really hard to know how you can assess that, okay, you're positive for this parasite, but how you can be sure that it's linked to this and not something else.
Correlation is not causation. There are so many factors in the human, like your lifestyle, what you eat, what you take, the drug, plus the parasites. It's just to consume impact.
So what you say as well is that the more raw meat you're gonna eat in your life, the more chances you got
Yeah.
it's gonna stack up in your
Yeah.
muscle or wherever. And so the more you continue with the eating, even if it's an accidental host eating those parasites, the more you eat them, the more you stack them, and the more dangerous they can be for.
Yeah, it's more or less like this from at least for the human host perspective.
I know you didn't mention it, but I'm just curious if you ever work with Lyme disease and
No.
scanning.
No, I usually we mostly work with the when most of the sample we got are from cows, sheep, and dogs. So it's not really we don't.
Because in a way, maybe it's the deers that get thick.
Yeah. But it's usually it's not the parasite. Maybe it's more like research oriented than actually diagnostic.
I have a question.
I feel like I have an exam. I hope my colleagues are not watching.
But you mentioned that there's a lot of species we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in the last 5 years, do we discover new parasites on when will be the superbug that will kill us all?
Well, the thing is, like parasites.
It's novelty.
I mean, a good parasite, if it's killed its host, it's a bad parasite because it cannot develop unless it has an host. So if it's killed the host, it cannot reproduce, it cannot develop. So the best parasite is.
Exactly, I was saying, so alien is a bad parasite, right? Alien.
Yeah.
But it's like a butterfly at the same time. It changes its back, same reach the full circle.
You just need to complete the life cycle before killing. For example, I didn't put picture, but there is this a parasite that is similar to like mind controlling that is developing into the grasshopper, and it's pushing it to jump into water in order to get out of it. So it's killing the host, but after having completed its life cycle.
Mushrooms as well, wasps that do that.
And there is also one unique parasite that actually eats the fish tongue and replace it. So actually in Norway you can find like this fish, and it's kind of like a tongue with eyes. And it's the only, I think apparently it's the only parasite that replaces an organ by eating it.
Okay, we have one more question.
Yes, one more question. At the beginning of your presentation, well, I heard an approximate number, but I want to see if you maybe have if you are better informed. You mentioned jumping diseases.
Yeah.
So, in the last century, do you know the exact number of the jumping diseases? Is there an approximate
I didn't check. It's just I know that the organism. I don't know the English word. Like the national health just estimated at least the 3 decades. That's 75% emergence disease was actually zoonotic, but I don't have like the exact number. But I think it's probably there.
I heard it was around 136 new diseases from the 1900s to now.
Okay.
136.
Okay.
If there is no other information. So
I guess it's true. Yeah. But I think it's probably increasing lately because since we are more in contact with wildlife, we expect with climate change that it will be even more emerging infectious disease coming from the wild. So.
Okay, that was a lot of questions.
Yeah.